I'm almost afraid to ask, but how are you doing, Myke?
I can't actually find a way to answer that question because I'm like, do I make a joke? Do I answer seriously? Do I like say a bunch of things to bleep them out? Like they're the three options that came to my head, but I don't have a good answer for any of them. So I guess I'll just answer honestly. Today is, I felt better yesterday. Today I don't feel any better because the reasons I have coronavirus in San Jose. Oh yeah, because I guess Cortex listeners don't even know, do they?
No, Cortex listeners don't even know.
So, update since the last time. Since our last recording, I got a call from Apple. And they said, hey, we're doing an in-person WWDC and we'd like you to come. So I was like, awesome. I'm going to achieve a life goal. Here we go. I'm going to my first keynote.
Literally a dream come true with that, yeah.
So this was a little less than 2 weeks before WWDC. So I had to arrange travel for me and Adina, which at that kind of period in this economy, it was very cost prohibitive, but it was like, well, this is a life goal. This is a dream. You know, if you're ever going to spend the money on something, you spend it on that, right?
Yep.
So we made it work. We got out here the couple of days leading up to making the trip. I wasn't feeling too awesome. I had a little bit of a tickly throat, sore throat. So I kept testing, as one does. And it was fine. Obviously, you have to test to come to America anyway. But I was doing a bunch of lateral flow tests at home. Everything was fine, including the morning we left. So at 8:50 a.m., the day that we left for San Jose, did another test, which is an extra test. We didn't need that one to fly, but I thought I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to make sure. I was negative. Took the flight. Throughout the flight, I didn't feel awesome, but I never feel great on planes anyway. Like on a long flight like this, like a long haul 11-hour flight, I always get off not feeling too awesome, you know?
Yeah, a flight from London to California is not the time to judge how good do I feel.
And then arrive in my hotel, take another test, immediately positive for COVID. Immediately. So this was Saturday night. Hilariously, like I looked at the images. So it was 8:50 a.m. I was negative. Exactly 8:50 p.m. San Francisco time, I was positive. It was just funny that the timestamps on those are both like 8:50, but obviously way more than 12 hours, right? It's like 20 hours difference. But in those 20 hours, I went from negative to, I would say, incredibly positive. So you've done lateral flow tests, right? The antigen tests. You know when like you can watch the liquid kind of like move through the testing field?
Right.
As soon as it got to that area, dark red immediately. Like, and you know, I know other people that have taken tests. I haven't had COVID yet, but I know people that have taken tests, or I've read about them or seen them, and it takes 15 to 30 minutes. But no, this was like, there's no joke, boy. You've got COVID.
Yeah. Everyone's advice is you have to wait a while and see if it fills in, but apparently not for you.
Why wait? You know,
there's enough drama and tension with just the liquid making its way
that is
up
a good
to the
point,
sensor.
actually. That is a good point. And I'll say this is one of the worst illnesses I've ever had.
Really? Okay.
I have been very sick. Like, I've got a little bit right now. The worst symptom I've had is my chest feels like it's burning. That's kind of how I feel right now. Obviously, you can hear I'm stuffed up, and I've been going through periods of just like extreme lethargy. Like I just can't move. I've been really messed up. Now I will say, friend of mine _ Mr. Widgetsmith said to me, I was talking to him, really, it's kind of good that you are this sick, because if you were just positive and weren't sick and missed out on everything, you'd be even more upset. I'm like, you know what? You're right. If I'm going to have it under these circumstances, I kind of want to feel it, you know? Like if I have absolutely zero symptoms, but had to pull out of everything, I think that would hurt more.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I also feel like in this moment, whatever you need, man, to feel better. Like if that helps
I'll
you
take
feel better,
anything. Yeah.
right? That's good, because I mean, I don't know any of the details. I just got your instant message, and it was one of the most crushing photos someone has ever sent me of just your positive test result. Not because of like, oh, Myke has COVID. It's knowing like I was just messaging you from my perspective when you were getting on the plane, and then later in the same day it's like, oh, you've arrived, and now you can't go to any of the things that you have arrived at, and this is the first time that you got invited out to participate in all the stuff. It was just crushed. Like I turned to my wife immediately. I was like, you will not believe what just happened to Myke.
I tell you, I had two. I genuinely, these were my first two thoughts. Right, there was a bit of a delay between the two of them. So my first thought was, I was devastated. Yeah, absolutely devastated. It's one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced, because there was this. I was going to be going to Apple Park, and there was a lot of other opportunities that have had to be gotten rid of, which I think hurt even more. That we were going to be doing this week. And one of the next thoughts that I had was, at least this is a good story. Like I got all the way here. Like I'm in a room in San Jose right now. I have been here for 5 days now, while everyone is also in this area doing all the things and seeing each other and living their convention life. And I have sat here in this friggin' room. I've been recording some shows and stuff, right? Because like people say to me, and I'm sure people say to me now, and I get it. They're like, you shouldn't be doing this. You're sick. Trust me, I understand that. But here's the other thing. What else would I be doing here? You know, I would just be sitting here for days and days. Like, honestly, I've done a show every day. I've added in an extra show. I was on Federico and John's show, App Stories, because I need something to do. Because otherwise, I came halfway across the world to do less than I would do if I was at home. You know, it's just so like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing it, but for my mental state, I have to do it, because otherwise I'll be losing my mind.
It didn't dawn on me until just now, but I realized, oh, of course, no one can see you either.
Yeah.
Like I've just been thinking, oh, you can't do any of the Apple events that you were invited to, but it's no one can see you.
No, all my friends are here, and there's people I haven't seen. Yesterday, I saw a couple of friends from a very far distance in an outside courtyard. But that was the first time anyone would want to see me, because no one would see me before now, because I could jeopardize their week, right?
Of course, yeah.
But now most of the stuff's done. People were more willing to see me. But there are people that came in just for like a day or two, and I didn't see them. And, you know, it sucks, man.
Yeah, if we had gone together and you had tested positive, I would not see you. I'd be like, well, sorry, buddy.
You're on your own now, friend.
Yeah. But you are just like, oh, well, you're just going to be in spaceship hotel room. That's where you are. Oh my God. I don't know why. I kind of just thought at least you'd be hanging out with other people, but of course not. Like, I don't even know why that was in my head. Maybe because I couldn't like face full on how miserable of a situation you're in.
I can't even look at it.
My brain was like, it's fine though. At least he's hanging out with all the guys, right? No, he's not.
And I'm still positive. I tested this morning. I'm still very positive. Like the test, there's no waiting around, you know, like that test's ready to go.
I mean, Myke, don't take this the wrong way. You sound extraordinarily positive. You sound terrible.
Yeah. I can hear it this morning. I sound worse today than I did yesterday. That's for sure. Like I can hear, because my show, when I did Upgrade on Monday, I sounded more like this. When I did Connect on Wednesday, I wasn't so congested. So it didn't sound as sick. The main issue that I've had, which I'm also experiencing, I'm getting confused a little bit sometimes. Like I don't, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I start a sentence and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. Like that's the thing that I'm feeling more acutely than normal.
Well, at least that doesn't impact your work in any way.
Yeah, no, it's fine. What do I need to keep track of anything I say, you know? What should I say about the room we're in? The only piece of luck is where we're staying. So... San Jose, you've been to San Jose. It's all the amenities are kind of bad. You know, like the hotels are all kind of terrible. They're all still overpriced, even though there's no fucking convention. Like, why are why are all these hotels still so expensive? Nobody's here, but they're still all really expensive.
It sounds like a hotel cartel, is what that sounds like.
It's like I don't understand how this is still okay. But we booked a room, and I always want a room. I want to make sure I get a desk, right? Like it's important, you know. So. The room we got wasn't the cheapest, but there were it was just like a regular room, but one of the a deluxe room or whatever nonsense, which just means it has a desk in it, and that was at I think it was at the Marriott Hotel or something. And then David and Steven found this serviced apartments company. It's not like Airbnb, but it's we are a company who owns a bunch of apartments in downtown San Jose, and you can just rent them for short stays. And I took a look at it because I could see a much bigger desk area. There's the desk in the bedroom, and there's a table in the living room area, because it's a full-on apartment. We have a bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen, and a big living room. And I was looking at that because also, we weren't really sure where me and Jason were going to be recording. That one thing we missed, Jason recorded at Apple Park, and I recorded from here. They were going to have us record together at Apple Park, which would have also been really... They built a podcast studio, and we were going to be the first ones to use it. Jason still used it, which was good for him, but I was here. But we weren't sure where we were going to record, so I was like, having a room with a table and chairs, that might be quite good. And also, we priced it out, and it was cheaper than the Marriott room that we booked. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. And it turns out being the only strike of luck that we've had this week, because we've been able to have room and space from each other.
Yeah, because Adina's there, right?
This is why I've been sleeping with an N95 mask and living my life in an N95 mask in this hotel room, which if you have COVID and you're already struggling to breathe a little bit and you are sleeping in an N95 grade mask, I'll tell you right now, that is a horrible experience.
I literally don't think I could do that.
What else are you going to do though, right? You want to protect your partner. This is where it's there's nothing else we can do. It's been a horrible week, Gray.
Man, I mean, I was really hurting this summer, just flying to Hawaii wearing the mask. I think my only pro tip there was I realized about halfway through on the flights, the Apple Max headphones have a nice little ridge in the ear cup, so you can wear the headphones and put the mask, hook the ear cups to the mask itself to take the pressure off of your ears and to make it somewhat more comfortable. I don't know if you could sleep with headphones and masks.
I'm trying to work my head around the logistics of that. I don't think I have the brain capacity.
You have the brain capacity, because think about this. The Apple Max headphones, the big ones that go over your ears, are you wearing them right now?
I'm wearing them right now, yeah.
So if you feel them, there's where the foam is for the ear cups. It's a little ridge of space. So you can securely wear a mask, and instead of putting it around your ears, put it around the ear cups of the Max headphones. And it takes I found for a long period of time, it was significantly more comfortable because it takes the pressure off of the back of your ears, which was rapidly becoming, intolerable after 12, 13, 14 hours of travel.
I'm going to do this on the way home.
Yeah, so I would recommend giving that a try. But how's Adina doing? Is she okay?
Yeah, she's fine.
Okay.
Unbelievably. I kind of can't balance it out in my brain how I can be feeling like this, and she's totally fine. I'm happy though. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, of course.
You can hear me. I need someone to look after me, right? I can't do all this on my own,
right? And
so I'm really pleased, but I also just kind of can't wrap my head around it because, yeah, it's just so strange. It's all so strange. I don't know why it's hitting me as hard as it is, and I will tell you right now, I am so thankful to be vaccinated. My God. Because if I feel like this and my body has a level of protection, I can't even imagine what this is like if I didn't. This has been just a bad week. But I'll go back to it. It's a great story though, right? in like 2 years' time, we'll all be at WWDC. It's definitely just going to be like it is right now. They're never going back to how it was. I think that's the thing that's been proven this week. They know how to do it in this hybrid way. Mm-hmm. We'll also, do you remember the first one when Myke came all the way here and got COVID? Like it's the story is there. The story tells itself,
Yeah. I wonder, I'm sure someone at Apple could confirm or deny this, but you have to be the person who traveled from the farthest and tested the most frequently to then not be able to go. Like there's nobody else who would have come as far, tested right before they got on the plane, and then immediately tested positive when they arrived, who came from the other side of the earth. Like that has to just be you.
I do believe I am the only person from the media wing that this happened to. Now, there was like 1,000 developers, maybe. It's what it looked like.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they brought that many people. Like that's still a lot bigger than I thought.
I don't know that number for sure, but if you look at the pictures, there's so many people that ended up being here. Like I've seen people estimate maybe 200 media, 1,000 developers.
Boy, that's interesting.
But if it was not 1,000, it's in the real high hundreds. Like they ended up converting a huge part of they converted their cafeteria and their outside space into this big seating area where everybody sat and watched the thing. And it was a lot of people that were there.
Do you know, are the Apple developers by invitation? Like, does it work the same way as with the media?
It's yes and no. They had an open kind of like you can apply to come to the event. And they sent out the invitations that way. But I expect there were also an element of people that were asked to come as well.
Yeah, okay.
Because also they had like design awards, and you kind of have to have the nominees there, right?
Right.
So I think it was a mixture, like WWDC has always been. It was a mixture of lottery and invitation. Also, with the media part, it seemed like over a week period, they kept growing. Because like I got invited, and then a few days later, more of my friends got invited, and then more, and then more. Like felt like they kept extending the invitations a little bit. But from the conversations that I've had, I think I'm the only person this happened to. Apple been very nice to me. They sent me this like care package of medicines and snacks. Aww. In like everybody got a goodie bag, like which had like a hat and badges and a tote. They sent it in that, which was nice, and it's like I had a nice little note from Apple PR, which was really sweet. Because I would assume they're just thankful that I was honest.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit of a thanks for not infecting everyone basket, and especially given how terrible you sound. It's like, thank you for not coming here and getting your COVID germs all over our sample MacBook Airs for everyone to handle.
I wouldn't have been able to do it, right? Like on Monday, I wouldn't have been able to get by, but
I mean, again, my feeling right now is this will be funny in a year when you're at the next one. Mm-hmm. It's not.
I see the funniness in it now, though, right? Like I'm not laughing about it very often, but I see that it's funny, right? Like I can see that. Like it's just like it's just the irony of it all, really.
Yeah.
That I finally got everything I wanted, and then it got taken away from me in the 12th hour.
Yeah, it's a bit like a granted wish from a genie. Like, oh, you just asked for the invitation. You didn't ask to go.
Oh, you just said you wanted to go there. Well, you're there, aren't you? You're in San Jose, right?
Yeah, I think you could hear laughter in my voice, but I know this is what happened when my brain, again, just like can't process it fully or just refuses to. It's like, no, it's funny. It's like, no, it isn't. It isn't really, though. Like, honestly, since you sent me that message, I don't know, a couple days ago, I've just been, minding my own business, working on stuff, and that image of your positive COVID test just pops into my brain, and I think, poor Myke. Poor Myke.
This episode of Cortex is brought to you by Fitbod. Between balancing work, family, and just about everything else you've got going on in your life, it can be really hard to make fitness a priority. What you need is a program that works with you, not against you, and that's why you need Fitbod. Fitbod has an algorithm that's going to learn about you and your goals and also your training ability, and it's going to use that to craft a personalized exercise plan that's unique to you. Their app also makes it incredibly easy to learn exactly how to perform every single exercise. Personal fitness isn't about competing with others. You don't want to have to look to other people and try and stack up against them and do what they do. What you need is something that will work for you, because that's when it's going to stick and you'll see the results that you've been looking for. And Fitbod will use data to create and adjust a dynamic fitness plan for you to make sure that you're going to be able to get those results. You'll also have instant access to your own personalized routine in their awesome app, so you can make progress on your goals from anywhere. What I really love about their app is their video tutorials. They're HD, they're shot from multiple angles, so you can make sure that every new exercise, you're learning it really easily, makes it a breeze. Fitbod's app also integrates with your Apple Watch, Wear OS smartwatch, and apps like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. Fitbod really is amazing and has definitely changed how I consider fitness. Everyone's fitness path is different. This is why Fitbod does so much work to make sure that they customize things exactly to suit you. It makes sure to learn from your last workout so your next will be even better, whether you're working out twice a day or twice a week. Fitbod even tracks your muscle recovery to make sure that your plan is balanced with a variety of exercises to make sure you're not overworking anything. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year. But you can get 25% off your membership by signing up today at fitbod.me/Cortex. So go now and get your own customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/Cortex, and you will get 25% off your membership. That's fitbod.me/Cortex for 25% off. Our thanks to Fitbod for the support of this show and Relay FM. Everyone's been so nice, right? Like, it's been an emotional, it's just been such an emotional time, right? Because I've got like all this stuff that like just so close I could touch it kind of thing that I've wanted, and then so that's what's been emotional. And then, you know, talking about it and like sharing how I'm feeling online and stuff, I wasn't sure how people would react, you know, like, 'cause it's such a strange thing, but the unbelievable wave of care that I've gotten from listeners has just been honestly quite astounding. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced something like this before. Like, which I guess kind of shows that people know what this meant to me. Like, they understood it as acutely as me. Which is just a nice feeling. A lot of tears have been shed this week, man. I'll tell you. It's been a time.
I think there's a lot of listeners who have listened to you over many, many shows over many years now, and will know like how much it will have meant to you to go to this thing. And so can really internalize just the crushing unfairness of this happening to you of all people who were there. So yeah, it's very nice to hear that you've been getting sympathetic messages from all of your various audiences. Like that's nice to hear.
But I also had, like, one of my friends said to me yesterday, at least you know you're going to get another invite now. They're not going to forget about you.
Here's to next year, Myke.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. So awful. Oh.
We can't get away from it either, right? Like, the natural thing is like, okay, we're done with that part of the show. We'll now move on to other things we want to talk about. But you can't listen to me. You can't get away from this.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
it's like
you sound terrible, and also because I've been there, I have this horrible understanding of sense of place. Of like, I know what those hotel rooms are like. I know what it's like being in the city. Also, I mean, like, going to conferences, there's a thing about going to conferences which always makes me feel like, oh God, the whole world is high school again. And where you just have this feeling of, oh, you're in this place and there are all the people around and there are events going on, and then it becomes this weird social management game. And there's something great about conferences because you get to see people, but I also just acutely feel the awfulness of, like, you know, that there are other things going on, and like, ooh, maybe you get invited to those things and maybe you don't. And that happens in normal life, but something about like the conference environment just really heightens those feelings and makes everything just feel way worse if you're like, oh, I'm not at an event where I know a bunch of people are. And so like I can viscerally feel like Myke in his hotel room. It's just like high school. There's the coolest party of the year, but he did get invited, but he can't go. And like the proximity of everybody being there is just different. You don't have the protection of being 9 hours off in a time zone. So you're like, oh, when you see the tweets, it's because they happened 9 hours ago. It's like, no, they're happening right now.
It's happening now.
It's awful.
Like I had a thing where I opened Find My Friends.
No.
Because Adina popped out to get some stuff, and like, you know, San Jose. The streets here aren't amazing. Like, you never really feel fully safe in some of these areas. Doesn't matter how nice the area is. Like, there's just like can be especially earlier in the morning, like an element of weirdness here. And I opened it, Find My Friends on Monday morning, and got to see everyone moving towards Apple Park, right?
No. Oh, no.
Here they go, you know?
Oh, come on. Come on.
Also, just in general, San Jose, San Jose, hey, look, you're, I'm sure everybody here is lovely, and like, I don't want to be here. Like, if I was in San Francisco, at least I would have like way more options for food delivery and stuff. And like, there's stuff, we've been fine, but there's stuff I want way more, and it's like...
I have nothing bad to say about the residents of San Jose, but I will just agree with you.
Hey, neither did I.
Odd... It is an odd conference city. Like it both has the infrastructure necessary and also feels like it's completely missing all of the things. So yeah, it's a strange place. It's a strange place to be.
Also, I know San Jose is the place where I get coronavirus. Like, I'm 100% positive in San Jose 100% of the time. I've never been positive in London.
Right. It was just a cold in London, but now
look what happened when I came here. Look what you did to me, San Jose. I used the Min. I brought. No, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I brought my Minix plug.
So how's that WWDC?
We'll get to that in a minute. My plug. I bought my Minix plug. I'm using it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Finally.
All right. We're moving on.
Yeah, moving on. I brought it. It's great.
You like it?
It's a great little plug. But Apple has one now too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that Apple had one, which is nice, but I still say the Mini X wins out because it can travel, right? It can travel to different locations, and it has the USB-A.
Oh, well, also it's more powerful.
Yeah.
Because the Apple one only goes to 35 watts.
I'm just happy to see Apple do something with 2 USB-C ports, because any pressure that can be put on the like more USB-C ports, please, train, I'm happy to have. So I'm glad you liked it. You suggested last time that you saw on Amazon they had a bigger one that was like a 3 USB-C port and an A1. I did get that while I was in Hawaii, and my recommendation is it's fine if you're going to use it in the house, but it's not good for travel. It crosses that boundary of it's too big, it's too heavy, and so I'd rather have 2 of the little Mini X ones to be more flexible also for location than the one big one.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't love it as the charger, so I'm going to be sticking with the 2 USB-C version of the Mini X.
One of the interesting things Apple is doing with theirs is it comes with some versions of the new MacBook Air. Or if you go for the baseline MacBook Air, it's like a £30 increase. But if you buy the upgraded one, you get it. Well, you get a choice. You can either choose between the 35 watt with 2 ports or one 67 watt adapter. I think that's cool to have as an option for your laptop, right? Especially something like a MacBook Air, because it's the lightest laptop, then this laptop is the travel laptop as well. It's just the most popular. But you could imagine you've got one power outlet at an airport, and you plug in your laptop and also plug in your phone. Like, that's the benefit of things like this, these like GAN chargers that we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes. So I'm just happy that they are giving it as an option now, depending on the laptop that you buy. I think it's cool.
That is cool. Although that feels like maybe one of the most un-Apple-y options that they've ever made available. That just feels very...
The choice of power adapters.
Yeah, I'm very surprised by that.
This is a new thing though, right? Because with the MacBook Pros, you can choose to get more powerful ones if you want them. So I like it. This is part of like their new that Apple Silicon era laptop purchasing decisions is like one of the options you get is how do you want to charge it? Because they have this new charging technology, right? They have like fast charging. So you can pay more to get the fast charging, or you can pay more for the added convenience of 2 USB-C ports on a thing. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
It's not like old Apple, but Apple Silicon Apple, it seems like a bit of a different beast.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like everyone should go for the 2-port version.
Yeah.
Like that just feels like such an obvious win. Like the number of times fast charging is really going to matter versus the number of times you want another thing to charge. Like, yeah, it's like 100 to 1.
Especially on a MacBook Air, right? Because with the MacBook Pro, some of the stuff that you do on the MacBook Pro just drains the battery faster than you can charge it because that's just the nature of the machine. But for the vast majority of people buying a MacBook Air, they're doing like the regular stuff, right? They're doing regular computer stuff. They're not all of them are bouncing Final Cut videos or whatever. So I would say, like, if you want the more powerful one. Otherwise, you go for the dual one.
Yeah. I always think it's funny during the presentations. I'm always very aware when they talk on the MacBook Air. They'll bring up Final Cut, but they never say the word exporting, and they always have some kind of qualifier. They're like, oh, it's great for some light Final Cut editing, right?
Yeah.
But don't render your project on here, guys. Like, don't do that.
This will do better, like, because they brought, on the M2, they brought in the video encoding stuff that was in I think the M1 Pro. They brought that onto the M2 chip.
Yeah, I still wouldn't want to have to render anything on a system without a fan, but, I mean, maybe, but...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just...
So it will deal with some stuff, but you're right, because it won't be able to sustain the long time needed for rendering.
Yeah, I still have such a visceral memory of being in Austin with you, trying to export a video project while I was in like a co-working place and just... watching the render race against my battery dropping, and I was like, oh, come on, computer.
Man, I'd forgotten this.
I gotta go. Everyone's having fun at mini golf, but I'm not there, right? I'm not in any of your mini golf photos because I was watching my battery go 10%, 9%, and I just had to get that project finished. I can't remember which video it was, but I was like, oh my God, please laptop make it. And it didn't, is the spoiler of that. So I never made it to mini golf.
That I remember now that like there was one morning where everybody was surprised because you published a video. We were like, hang on a minute, he's here with us. What's he doing? Oh, man, that's funny.
Yeah, it took longer than I expected.
Yeah.
So only render things on laptops that are really built for them is the lesson that I learned that day.
What do you think about that MacBook Air, though? Like, it looks cool, right?
Oh, yeah. It's not a machine for me, obviously, but it looks like a fantastic computer.
Yeah.
I'm also really happy to see that what I think is the vastly more sensible design language of the squared off edges is spreading. Again, I hope they keep this. Like, I never really loved the thin wedge of the old Air designs. It's like, I get it. It's cool. At the time, you could save some space that way, but
they just don't need to do it anymore.
I'm just happy to see the spread of the square.
The wedge was a compromise because they had to keep fans in those machines still.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Because if you remember, a machine that was not wedge-shaped was the MacBook, right? That 12-inch MacBook. That wasn't wedge-shaped. And there was no fan in it. But that machine couldn't handle having no fan in it, right? Like, it just couldn't do it. But now, with all their Apple Silicon stuff, it just doesn't need it. This can be incredibly powerful and need no fan. And so they can just make it super, super thin. It looks fantastic. I'm excited to see it. Obviously, I didn't get to see one. That is one of the other things I missed out on, was my very first product hands-on, because all of the media got to go and do like a hands-on with the stuff. Phil Schiller was there and Tim Cook was there and like a whole thing.
Right, and everybody's footage from that room is used silently because it seems like it must be so incredibly loud.
Yeah.
I'm just really aware that all the footage on YouTube is like, no one uses the audio from whatever that room is. It must be just a cacophony of everybody screaming, give me that, I want the starlights, right? That's what's going on over there. It's like pandemonium.
But I want to see this machine. I want to understand the thinness and the lightness of it. I think it could be really nice for my daily computer. I'm wondering about like making my MacBook Pro my actual recording and editing machine, and having a MacBook Air as the computer I take to and from the studio.
Right, because you're moving the MacBook Pro back and forth right now. Is what you're doing?
Yeah, I take it home and bring it back every day.
Yeah, no, that seems sensible.
Like if I travel to record, I would travel with the MacBook Pro because then it's all still set up to record on, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a consideration I'm having because I'm trying to work out, like, I love my iMac, but it's not powerful enough now. Like, I should say it is powerful enough, but I feel the difference between it and my MacBook Pro. Mm-hmm. And so, like, in trying to work out what I think my future might be, it might be 2 laptops. But I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I mean, we've discussed this, but my plan going forward roughly is like have laptops because they're easier to switch around, they're easier to change their purpose. And now that Apple's really locked down external display support, including on those iPads, you might as well keep going with the stuff that's more flexible, especially if you think things are going to possibly change with your work and office setup. So yeah, I say go for it. Get your hands on one. And so then I can come checking out what I can see next. After you have definitely tested negative.
Unless you're coming out here, I don't know. You know, I'm not expecting it anytime soon.
But look, man, like we're recording this now also because I'm whoosh away again on another trip for like 3 weeks, right? So you better be testing negative by the time I come back, and you may very well have your hands on a MacBook Air by the time I next see you.
That'd be nice. This episode of Cortex is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for helping you build your brand and grow your business online. You can stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, from your products to your services or even the content that you create, because Squarespace has you covered. It's super easy to get started with Squarespace. You just take one of their beautiful templates and you customize it just however you want. With the fonts, the colors, the layout, everything can all be done in the web browser. You can even use their apps to customize your website too. It really is super easy. With Squarespace, you can very easily get blogging. They have all these powerful blogging tools to help you share your stories, photos, videos, and your updates. You'll be able to categorize, share, and schedule your posts to make sure it works for you. All you need to do is just choose one of the beautiful templates. It's just as easy as browsing the category of your business to find a perfect starting place. Then you can do all of that customization that I mentioned. You can even sell your products on an online store. Whether you sell physical or digital goods, Squarespace has the tools that you need to start selling online. And you can also use insights to grow your business and your website. If you've ever wondered where your site visitors are coming from, or where those sales are originating, or which channels are most effective, you can analyze all of this in Squarespace, because once you've got the data, you can then improve your website and build a marketing strategy based on your top keywords or most popular products and content. I have been using Squarespace for over 10 years. Whenever I want to get something online, I don't want to have to jump through all the hoops that it takes to build a website from scratch. I just want to be able to go into Squarespace, get everything set up beautifully in just the way that I want, and then get my words or ideas out there, because that's the whole point of the website in the first place. Now, you can go and try out all of this for yourself today, and you can see why Squarespace is going to work for you. Just go to squarespace.com/Cortex, and you can sign up for a free trial. There's no credit card required. Then, when you're ready to launch, use the offer code Cortex, and you'll save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/Cortex, and when you decide to sign up, use the offer code Cortex, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the show. A thanks to Squarespace for the continued support of Cortex and Relay FM. Should we talk about WWDC then?
Yeah, let's talk about the big event, WWDC.
I would say my overall feeling is they did a lot more than I expected. It was a very fast-paced presentation with tons of stuff, like really tons of stuff. And they hit a bunch of things hard and cleared up a bunch of problems that I think people had or wishes that they had, whilst also adding things that you didn't really think you wanted. That's kind of my like overall feeling of WWDC this year. I think that, honestly, I think this was a bit of a home run year on all sides, because sometimes they have things that are really good for developers. Sometimes they have things that are really good for consumers, content munchers.
Please no.
Software munchers. But this time, I think they did both, because they introduced a bunch of stuff and also said, and hey, there's also an API. Or they brought APIs in for things that didn't have APIs before. And I think that's what I want to see. I want both things. I want, like, here's an awesome new feature, and here's an immediate way for developers to take advantage of it. I do wish they completely leveled that playing field, because again, Apple have introduced new features, they've introduced APIs, but Apple's versions of those things can do more than developers can do. I kind of wish that that's the next part I would like to see them do, like true level playing field. Like, I'm thinking about like widgets of interactivity, or they have these new things called, it's like this notification thing. It's called live activities, which can update. I love it. So, like, say one of the things they showed was Uber, right? You order an Uber, you get like 6 notifications from Uber, right, over the period of like, we found you a ride, it's on its way, they're nearly here, they're at. But now there would just be one notification with an animation that gives you all the information you need during the time period. So, like, I love that. But Apple's live activities, like, you can press buttons on them. So, like, the timer is a live activity, and you can stop the timer that way. Or the now playing thing is now a live activity, and you can play and pause music. But developers can't have interactive buttons on their live activities. But that's, like, I'm getting into the weeds. Overall, I think this is really great. So I would like to know what features jumped out for you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Now that you mention it, I didn't tune into how often they said the word API, but you're totally right, which is different from previous years. They were really harping on that as we made this thing, and also it's an API. Like, that's a good catch that I didn't tune into. My overall impression was, so I ended up watching it twice because I just happened to catch it when it was, quote, live, and I was watching with my wife, and so it was like, wasn't giving it 100% attention. I was like, it felt like it was a little bit of a light year, and then I watched it again this morning to be like, okay, wait a minute, we're gonna do a show on this, like, let me go through and actually pay attention. And I feel like, yeah, there was a lot more in it than I thought when I was first just casually watching. And it felt to me a bit like, sometimes in video games, they have a release that they just call a quality of life release, where they're just trying to make a large number of small things easier and nicer to do. And this felt a little bit like a mega quality of life release to me, of like, we have a lot of things that are just making things smoother. And I actually made the same note as what you just said, that there were a number of times where I felt like, oh, you're fixing a problem that I didn't even really know that I had. And that live notification thing was one of them. Like, oh my God, of course. Like, when I order food to my house, it's incredibly annoying to try to leave the app open all the time to have a sense of where's the person, especially because what we're frequently trying to do is not have doggos alarmed by people at the door. So we want to try to catch it like at the exact right moment of like, okay, buzz the person into the building before they ring the bell, and like open the door before they get there. So we're always like trying to keep the app open and see exactly where the person is. And it's like, oh, I don't think it would have ever occurred to me that this is a perfect solution for the lock screen, but like, great. I love that they did that. And there were a number of other little things like that where I just thought, oh, I wouldn't have even thought about this. So yeah, it was an interesting year.
What do you think about that new lock screen design?
Yeah, the lock screen was one of them where I think I just hadn't really conceptualized different lock screens in that way.
Yes.
I think it's great. I think it's a really good idea. I was extra surprised when it wasn't even just, oh, you can finally customize your lock screen, but oh, you can have multiple different ones. It's like, wow, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought of asking for it. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like, it's a weird amalgamation of things. There's like a little bit of Focus in there. There's a little bit of Apple Watch, actually quite a lot of Apple Watch in there. It kind of does feel like they were like, hey, what if we made the Apple Watch the lock screen? Because you've got multiple lock screens / faces. You've got complications have come, and also the notification design reminds me of Apple Watch. Like, now all the notifications are at the bottom in this like scrolling list, which reminds me of kind of like, you know, it's the opposite way. Like, that's how Apple Watch has always been. Like, your most recent is the one at the bottom, and then it goes up chronologically, which is the opposite to how it is on the iPhone. I didn't think
about that, yeah.
But now it's like that on the iPhone too. So like, notifications are right down at the bottom. You got all your stuff at the top. And that the complications thing, that I'm really excited about. It very, very clearly, I'm sure you can see it, but there's also been a ton of like data pulled out of the releases. Like there is going to be an always on lock screen on the next iPhone Pro, and this is part of.
Oh, I haven't seen any of the like what people have dug around in. So you're saying it's always on screen on the next iPhone?
And the complications. That's why that's why it's complications, not widgets. Right. They're calling them widgets, but they're actually complications. And you can imagine that will just come right over, right?
Right. Because then they can use all the power saving stuff for the watch.
Yes.
Oh, clever, Apple.
Yeah, it's very clever, right?
I didn't think about that. That makes sense.
Developers have to actually do something. You can't just, if you have a complication, it doesn't just show up. You have to like basically check a box and it will work. But because they're bigger, you can also do things that you can't otherwise do. So, friend of the show, Timery, is on the Apple Watch now, right? Which is fantastic, and I love it. But I saw Joe, the developer, was posting like a complication design for the iPhone, which it's physically larger, so he could show more in it than he could show on the Apple Watch, like a circular one with a running timer in the middle, which you wouldn't fit on the Apple Watch's display, but you could fit on this one. But they're like similar in feel, and you can move your existing ones over. But because you have more screen real estate, you can also do some different things with it as well. So I think that this is really weird and really cool. And I'm very intrigued because I feel like I don't spend a ton of time on my lock screen. But I probably do, checking my notifications, but I don't think about it. So I'm keen to see, like, what does it look like when I can customize it? And they're doing all this interesting stuff with machine learning and the imagery to, like, put the time and stuff behind elements on the screen. They're doing this like really, they've got some really powerful stuff going on with this, right? Because what it looks like when you look at the images on their website is, if you take a portrait photo, their phone knows and it can put the time behind the person's head, right? Mm-hmm. But this also works for images not taken on an iPhone.
Right. They're doing object detection. Like they did the demo in Messages with the bulldog of like, we can just pull the bulldog out of this image. Yeah.
And I've been doing this. I would run on an iPad, the beta. It is so good. You can tap on like anything and drag it out of an image. It's unbelievable. Like I've been doing it with people, with objects, and I mean, I don't know how useful it is, but it's really funny. It's like just becomes a funny thing. You can just like drag a little thing and text it to your friends. Like you just pull somebody out of an image. It's like quite memeable. Like I don't know how useful it is, but this is technology that they have created for something else, which is for the lock screen stuff probably. But at the same time, it's like, you can also pull people out of images and send them to people if you want to. So it's like a fun little thing that they've added.
Are you saying memes are not useful, Myke? Is that what you're saying there? If it's useful for memes, that feels like that's enough. That's more than enough. Although I do also, I have a small request here. If anybody on the Apple team is listening, because I was like, okay, all this machine learning stuff, it's absolutely amazing. But you know what always annoys me? And I feel like, come on, guys, you have to put this feature back in because you had it, whatever it is, 10 years ago on the old version of Photos on the Mac. I want to be able to not just know, like, this is this breed of this dog in this photo. It's like, no, guys. I want face recognition for dogs. And I know you can do this because you literally used to do it on the old iPhoto where you could like pick out the family dogs and you could say, right, this one is this dog and this one is that dog. And like I've tried to force the photos to be like, recognize the dogs in my life, right? But photos like, a dog, there's no face here. So I feel like, come on, guys. You have to be able to put this back in. Dogs are part of the family. I want dogs' faces recognized in photos. And I feel like if you guys are doing this stuff where you're like magically pulling objects out of images, we are way past the point where you can do this again and better than before. And it worked just fine before. So that's my request to the Apple team. Dog faces for your family.
I never knew this was a thing.
Yeah, you could force the old photos to do it. Like you put a circle around the dog and train it on a bunch of photos. And it would totally recognize it. In my family, we had a couple of dogs of the same breed. It could tell them apart. So it wasn't like just recognizing a dog. So I want that feature back. That's my request, Apple.
Thing that I'm surprised about through the entire keynote is focus. Because they did a thing that they never do. They introduced a feature. They made it better the next year.
I know.
This usually takes 2 years. And I understand
I
why.
know.
Like, I've heard this process explained, and I get it. They're already working on the next version. By the time, like, it's just these are the features that are left off or whatever. My only thing that I can assume is what they have now in iOS 16 is the full idea for Focus, right? That, like, they got somewhere through the development process of iOS 15, and they were like, okay, we need to draw a line and ship the, like, minimum viable product here. And then in iOS 16, we'll follow up with the rest of the features. Because some of the stuff they've added is some of the stuff that seems so obvious to us. Like, I was just talking about, like, the setup process being too complicated. And they have completely changed the setup process. It's now kind of like you can opt things in or opt them out, which is exactly what I wanted, right? So you can start by saying, no one can contact me except these people and apps. Or you can say, everything's fine except for these people and apps, right? So, like, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's just what I wanted, right? So you have that choice. And they call it allow and silence. Like, they're the verbs that they use. So you can allow these things and silence these things. They've also got, like, they've refined the process to make it easier to set it up. Like, they're trying to make more suggestions. I hope they'll be better than the last suggestion process that they made, because it was wild. The lock screen stuff can also tie into focuses. So you can have a work focus to set both a work home screen and a work lock screen. But the thing that I am the most excited about is the Focus Filters API.
Yeah, so I didn't quite get what they were talking about in the presentation with this. So this was, again, one of these moments like, we have an API for apps, and I felt like I don't quite understand what you're aiming for here.
Well, from my understanding so far, I still have some sessions to watch, but from what I've been able to get my head around, the API is actually for a feature called Focus Filters. But what it does is, I think it's basically an API that will let you know as an application what focus is somebody in. And then you can help them interpret that in different ways. So Apple have put it in Safari and Calendar and Messages and stuff. So, for example, if you are in your work focus in Safari, it can show you just your work focus tab groups, right? So you can hide all your personal tabs, just your work tabs. In Messages, you can say, these are my work messages, just show me these. And then when I'm in personal, or like home, don't show me those. Same as you can turn on and off mail accounts in Mail. So you can have, like, your work mail account and your personal mail account, and you'll only see the right ones when you need them. So they've created an API for other people to adopt to do the same thing. So, for example, let's imagine Slack, right? You could have personal Slacks and work Slacks. And when you're in your home, you don't see the work Slack anymore.
Okay. I know that they said something like that in the presentation, but the way you've just pitched it makes more sense to me. And this also feels like the very fact that they hit on it twice when I was watching that section, like I couldn't believe. I'm like, oh my God, we're doing focus modes again? I just assumed I'd have to live with this for a few years. It's interesting because seeing it a second time made me almost feel like, is this a bigger deal for Apple than I think it is? Or, like, is this connected to other projects in a way that's not obvious right now? Like, that kind of makes me feel like it's more. And with focus filter APIs, I don't know. It kind of makes, like, I know I think about this with everything, but it also just kind of makes me think of the AR project again. It's like, here, I think about this with the David Allen book, Getting Things Done, which I don't really recommend people read anymore. And one of the reasons I don't recommend people read it anymore is because one of the fundamental ideas in that book of, like, you have these different contexts. The whole world since that book was written has just collapsed into, there's one context and it's called your computer and your phone. Like, it's just your digital life. And this focus stuff feels like Apple trying to pull apart that idea, especially with the APIs. Like, that really does add a whole other layer onto it. And I could see that would be more important if you really are going to have, like, an omnipresent device.
Yeah.
To be like, this is the way I need the world now. It can't be everything always. Maybe it's not for the AR project. Maybe it's something else. But I definitely have that, like, little spidey sense going on of, like, this feels like it's more connected to other things being 2 years in a row end with these APIs, boy, that's very interesting. I'm going to be curious to see if it makes it next year.
Like the phrase focus filters, right, makes you think it's just about like taking away or adding things. But really, developers can use this to interpret or show their app in whatever way they want, right? It's just, it gives developers a way to know what the focus mode is, and then they can adapt to that. So like, let's imagine, I don't know, let's say YouTube, right? Where like they could just show you content related to work or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just about like conversations or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Fantastical, for example. You could imagine them tying it into their calendar sets.
Yeah, or like YouTube's a good example because one of my tricks for working is like, for a lot of the stuff that I do, YouTube is really good at research for a video that will be out at some point. I needed to review some like university level lectures on things, and I really was having this moment on YouTube of like, my God, isn't the modern world just amazing? Because like, oh, I can get access to all of this like MIT classes and all of these other universities that just like put stuff available online for free. And here's like some of the world experts talking about a thing. And I can just watch this guy give an 1.5 hour long presentation on like an obscure topic from the comfort of my own home. Amazing. But also it's filled with cat videos and like all of the YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to for entertainment. And so I think I started this sort of when I put together the new office, but I've made 2 separate YouTube accounts. One is on one computer and it is just for research stuff. Like it's just for the work. And one on like my personal devices, which is like, oh, here's all the YouTube channels I follow for entertainment. But it's like, it is really hard though to keep those things clean and separate 100% of the time. And yeah, it's like, it's interesting. YouTube is a great example of like, boy, if there could be some kind of focus context here of, hey, sometimes I'm using YouTube for work and sometimes I'm using it for relaxation. And I would like YouTube to be able to know that. That would be great, and could help get around some of like the nonsense that I currently need to do with switching between profiles and trying to remember to switch between profiles. And also because I don't want to see like YouTube ads, having to buy a family sharing program to share with myself YouTube Premium so I don't have like ads on both of the things. It's like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, boy, that is way more interesting than I was thinking it was, with the thought of like other apps can know and all of the possibilities that can be part of that.
Pretty excited about it. Like I wasn't expecting it, and I'm pretty excited about it because it feels like there is a lot more possibility available to this feature than before. And I agree with you in a way that's like, is this the full story? What's the full story with this? Like,
yeah, I'm very curious.
Yeah, I like it. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people that you want to interview faster and for free. When you're looking to hire, when you're in that phase of your business and you want to find someone to expand your team, it can be really stressful to hire. I mean, you've got so many other things going on, right? That's why you need more help in the first place. So it's really great to be able to use a tool that makes it so easy to not just find the right person, but also to help you manage all of the applicants. And that is what I really love about the LinkedIn Jobs system. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. This spreads the word that you're hiring so that your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Cortex. That's linkedin.com/Cortex to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Our thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for their support of this show and Relay FM.
So you said you're running the beta right now?
On an iPad, yeah.
Okay. Have you tried out the Stage Manager. I'm interested in this.
This is why I got an iPad Air, because I don't have an M1 iPad.
Okay.
Right? Because my iPad Pros are older. I have like one from 2018, one from 2020. I haven't updated them. So now I'm going to be selling those and using just this instead for the time being. There was a rumor as we record today of a 14-inch iPad coming in 2023, but I think makes a lot of sense when you look at what they're doing with Stage Manager. I've needed to try this like as soon as I could, and I have, and it's very intriguing. It's very clearly beta 1. Like, it's weird. Like, it does a bunch of really weird things. And I would say it works so much better in the Magic Keyboard than it does just trying to operate it all by touch. Like, it really does feel like a pro mode kind of thing for the iPad. But I really like it. In case people aren't aware, it's a new multitasking mode. It has, like, now overlapping resizable windows on iOS. And it's also coming to macOS too as, like, a new way to manage windows on macOS.
Yeah, they introduced it in a funny way, because they introduced it as a macOS feature first, where they're like, oh, look, we have this thing called Stage Manager. And I was watching it, and in my brain, I'm translating this as, oh, okay, this is trying to be a more user-friendly version of multiple desktops. Mm-hmm. And I thought, like that makes sense.
Yes.
It just so happens that time I was visiting my family and I taught my mom how to play Magic, there was one other major project, which was teaching my mom how to navigate around multiple desktops. And like Magic, it was one of those things where I thought, like, Mom, you'll love this, but it's going to be a real pain in the butt to figure it out for a while. But like, this is fantastic. And I got her over that hump of learning how to use multiple desktops. And now it again is one of these things of like, how have I used computers for this long without ever using this feature? But it is not user-friendly at all. It's not discoverable. It's very easy to feel like you've lost things with multiple desktops.
This is Spaces. You're talking about Spaces, right?
Yeah, sorry. I feel like this is the old, like, multiple desktops or virtual desktops, I think is the Linux language,
right,
which has never gotten out of my head, and they just call it Spaces in macOS. Yeah. That's the one for all the people always trying to get me to come back to Linux. But
man, those people are just going to give up. You know what I mean? That just feels like it's just sadness. You're setting yourself up for sadness.
I have always thought it's a great feature. And actually, having gone through that experience with my mom, I was thinking, like, so many people would find this really useful and they'll never discover it. Like, should I make a tutorial about this? And I was kind of toying around with that idea. And then that's why I was watching them do Stage Manager on the Mac and thought, okay, this is not for me, because it seems to burn a comical amount of screen real estate. But I feel like it is a good way to get people used to this concept of little groups of things that can be stuck together like they're in a desktop. But then when it was revealed, like, oh, this is actually an iPad feature, we just happened to have brought it to the Mac, it was like, this makes so much more sense.
From a presentation perspective, that was like Galaxy Brain.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Because you got to show how important and serious this feature is before bringing it to the iPad, right? It's like, we think this is a great way to use your Mac, also your iPad. That makes it seem like, oh, this is like a serious feature. This isn't just like a, we're working out iPad multitasking kind of feature. Like, it adds a level of seriousness to it, like credibility to it, before they showed it on the iPad. I thought it was really smartly done.
Yeah. Also, from a clever stagecraft perspective, that is a complicated feature. And so the ability to come back to it later after you have already seen it makes it significantly less overwhelming to explain the fullness of it. Because then they want to say, oh, look, you can use this on your iPad with external monitors. It's just a very clever stagecraft thing. If you have something that's really complicated, come back to it so that the audience feels familiar with it. Of like, oh, yes, Stage Manager. I remember that from before. So yeah, that was really well done. And it was interesting. I mean, it did make me laugh when I saw them using like Final Cut with Stage Manager and like a little square on the Mac. I was like, there's nobody on earth who uses Final Cut not full screen all the time. Like, you need every inch of that screen space. And it always makes me smile when they show how their computers look. It's like, Apple just loves to burn screen real estate in all of their little demos. Like nobody uses things full screen. Nobody tiles their windows. Everybody just has a little document floating in the middle of their beautiful wallpaper. But that is why I wanted to ask you, what is the experience of using it on the iPad? Because I can imagine that you don't have the option on the iPad to maybe try to stretch everything to take up the full space. So it's like, how does it feel? Does it feel wasteful on the iPad? Or like, do you think this is like a good way to use the iPad for their third go at iPad multitasking now?
This is the first time they got it right, I think. Like, this is the future foundation of working on the iPad. Like, it is odd in places, right? Like, the system is trying to do a lot of the, like, where do these windows go for you? Like, they're trying to be smart about it, maybe in a way where I don't know if it's necessary. But the level of flexibility that you have is vastly better than what you've had before. Like, I put a image in our show notes of how I was preparing for this show last night. I was using it in portrait at that time because I was just holding onto the iPad. And I had the bottom half of the screen had Google Docs. And on the top half of the screen, I had a Safari window with a Notes window just peeking underneath it. So I would tap into Notes, tap the link. It would just open in Safari. Nothing's flying around the screen. And I could read one and put notes in the other. And I really like that. Because I could have 4 windows on there if I wanted to. And I'm sure it's even better on the bigger iPad you go. I'm sure it works even better. But there's things you can do where, like, you can see in portrait mode, you don't see they call it the stage on the side, which shows you the app things, right? With the little visual parts of the app. You could also choose to hide that so you get more screen real estate.
And what, does it come back with a swipe from the side or something? Like, how do you then switch between different stages?
By just tapping icons on the dock. So like you just tap, it just takes you to the stage that has the app that you're looking for on. Kind of how, like, if you were in Spaces, if you just tap an icon on the dock, it just takes you to the space that app is on.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense.
But also, you can grab the little selector, like the resizing thing, and just pull any app full screen, and then pull it back again, and it takes you back to the stage that it was on before. So it's very flexible. Like, you can resize apps kind of freely, and you can also, if you need to, you want to focus on something, you can just make that app full screen. You can also, when you tap on the little 3-dot indicator, there's a button to just take an app full screen. So, like, it's very, like, you can go in and out depending on what you need at any one time. I think it's actually really great. I actually also think I would use this on the Mac, because I am a Spaces person, but for me to really use Spaces the way that I would want, I would have to have like 6 spaces, and it's just too much sliding backwards and forwards. But this would give me that, I think, way easier. So I'm looking forward to trying it out with macOS as well in the future. But for the iPad, I'm like, yeah, this is vastly better than what they've had before. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect. But we've got a whole beta cycle for it to get better. But the just the basic core idea that they're working on here is so much better than the split screen with slide over. It really is. I can already see it. It's just vastly better already. It feels more natural, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think even just seeing your vertical screenshot of working on the iPad, getting ready for the show, it's also funny. It never dawned on me about how I don't ever use multitasking in portrait mode because it's just too annoying because everything's vertical thin strips.
Yeah.
But being able to have 2 horizontal windows, one over the other, so much better.
Yeah, it was great.
So like I like that already.
And also there's no setting, like a display zooming setting, which I've turned on. So I have more space on my iPad too.
So this is the high space mode?
Yeah. So it's made this 11 feel more like a 12.9.
Right. And so the 12.9 will feel more like the 14, and the 14 will feel like a 21
16
or whatever. Yeah.
45. You can't read anything.
Well, look, I think, ooh, gigantic iPad. That'll be great for magic. That's what iPads are now.
Of course,
right?
we haven't even mentioned external display support, full external display support with Stage Manager.
Yeah, that looked cool. I was wondering if you could do it with the iPad like in clamshell mode. I was just kind of curious if that would work or not.
I haven't seen anyone try that yet, which makes you think you probably can't.
That's my guess, because I played around when they first did like the display mirroring with putting the iPad on the external display. It is terrible. Like, you would never really want to use a device like that. My only asterisk though is just in the way that iPad is not quite the same as Mac OS. For some tasks, it is kind of nice to be forced to like focus more clearly on one thing.
Like a stage manager would do that for you too, though, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's also very flexible. So you can, when you plug in a display, you can use the iPad in the old mode, like the split screen, and the external display can be stage manager.
That's interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, or if you've heard anything, but looking at Stage Manager, I feel like it does bring back that question of, so why are there these two different platforms? It just makes me wonder again about eventual unification of the iPad and the laptop. Like, this more than anything else, especially if it really catches on, like let's say Stage Manager turns out to be a very popular feature on the Mac. It really starts to be like, so wait, what's the difference between these two things again? And
see, I actually think I know where you're going. I see where you're going. I think that what we have here is the more of what it is. Like, the iPad is the middle platform. It has the elements of working on the Mac, but with the apps that are on the iPhone.
Yeah, but at the end of the presentation, they had this whole big, like, we're bringing everything from the desktop we can to the iPad section, which
desktop class.
I actually thought that was great, because this is something, like a little friction point that I run into constantly while doing family tech support. Like, they even just mentioned like a couple of features like in the contact book, but it's always like, oh, why can't I merge contacts on my iPad? I have to go onto my computer. And it's like, oh, I don't know why. You should be able to. So when they were zooming through this list of like, here's all the stuff that we found that we're trying to put in both places, that is what really made it feel like, so what's the difference again?
Right. You've just reminded me, this is the best thing ever.
What?
I've just opened contacts on my iPad, and it will let me merge duplicates. It's automatically found the 378 duplicate contacts I have, because iCloud has multiple times duplicated my entire contact book. I don't know why. And it just says, would you like to merge all these duplicates?
Yes.
Like, oh my God, yes, I would like to do that.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it is stuff like that too, right? Which I also like, big respect for, because freaking finally. But like, not this is one of those things. It's on a wish list of everyone. Of like, everyone has that little thing, right? That iPad just doesn't do, and now they bring in more and more and more of these features. It feels like basically they just did an audit, right? And they were like, oh, my app doesn't do this. My app doesn't do this. All right, we'll do all of it.
Yeah.
I would love to see the full list.
Yeah. Someone let me know if Smart Albums for iPhoto is on that list, because that has always been my big annoyance. Is I've made some smart albums in iPhoto to try to help me cull through and like filter and just like keep the photos that I want. And so I've made some smart albums to like help do that automatically, so I can tag like, oh yes, this photo is actually done. Let me get rid of all the other ones. But of course, the best time to do that is when you're casually on the couch, just flipping through photos. But smart albums have never transferred over from the Mac to iPhoto, which I've just never understood why. And that's one of my like, why can the computer do this and the iPad can't do this? Like, smart albums in iPhoto on the iPad is like the optimal place to look at photos. And I've always found it incredibly annoying. So I would love to know if that one made the list of, we're trying to make everything consistent everywhere.
I can't say I've seen it, my friend. I'm sorry to tell you.
We can always hope that it gets on that list. It's still beta season, right? Yep. That's always the futile hope of beta season. Maybe they'll add the things I want.
They're going to add right? Smart photos in beta 3, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because as we all know, from every beta year, they're always adding stuff, for sure.
They can't
Lots
stop.
of stuff gets added.
I will say, on that note, there is a bunch of stuff that's just not in beta 1, like that they're saying is coming. Like, there's like this one thing where like opening additional windows of an app inside of Stage Manager, a little thing pops up and it's like coming later, like leave us alone. It's really funny. And also just in general, this presentation had a lot more of coming later this year than they've done in the past, which honestly I respect, because over the last few years they announce a bunch of stuff and it just doesn't ship until like the end of the year. And I just think it would be easier for everyone if they just in advance decided on a bunch of those features. Like there'll just be a bunch of stuff that we're not even going to try and ship until later on, you know?
Honestly, I wish they would rebrand the whole thing as a roadmap, not as a OS release. I wish I could remember which version of Mac OS it was, but I remember for one of them, they made a big deal about, oh, we're not going to come out with Mac OS on a random schedule. Like, we're going to have one every year so you can count on it. And I remember thinking, I don't like the sound of this at all. I mean, of course, that goes with my whole philosophy of like forced deadlines encourage you to rush and do things poorly. So I have never loved, oh, we're going to have a new version of all the operating systems every year and it's going to be out on this particular time. So like I'm very happy to see them explicitly saying some stuff is coming later, but I really wish they would just rebrand the whole thing and say like, hey, this is what we're working on at Apple. And this is what you can expect to see over the next year or two. And like, just say that every year. So it's perfectly fine to be like, this is the stuff that we're working on, and have the WWDC until release time just be for developers for whatever like the major things are that you want to be able to have for the new phone. And just like roll stuff out more slowly over the rest of the year, and like don't hold yourself to these weird deadlines. So like, again, don't get me wrong, I am happy to see it, but I wish they would do even more of that. Just say it's a roadmap presentation and let's do that every year.
This episode is brought to you by Clean My Mac X. Make sure you can trust your Mac. The Mac is a crucial tool for work, education, and life, and MacPaw are on a mission to help machines help you, which is why they developed Clean My Mac X, an ideal decluttering app for the Mac that can keep it in tip-top shape. So what exactly does it do? Clean My Mac X includes 49 tools to find and delete invisible computer junk. It helps to tune up your Mac so it runs at maximum speed. Plus, it organizes disk space, showing your large hidden folders, meaning that you can free up tons of space so your Mac never runs into issues with storage. It fights Mac-specific malware and adware and protects your computer at the same time, preventing a Mac from cluttering, lagging, or slowing down. Clean My Mac X is notarized by Apple and is also available in the Mac App Store, so it's been checked for security, and it really stands out in design. In 2021, Clean My Mac was honored with the Red Dot Award, a UX Design Award, and has become a Webby Award nominee this year. I love Clean My Mac X myself. I feel like these days it's becoming more and more complicated to work out exactly how much storage space my Mac is using or needs at any one time, and Clean My Mac X really helps me find out and track down exactly where the culprits are of filling up my disk space so I can get some of that back. Get Clean My Mac X today with 5% off at macpaw.app/Cortex. This discount is only valid for 2 weeks, so go now to macpaw.app/Cortex for 5% off. Just as a final note, despite the war in MacPaw's home country, Ukraine, the team work hard to make sure there are absolutely no disruptions in the support and development of Clean My Mac X. The product is stable, safe, and secure, and I think we should give them our support. Our thanks to Clean My Mac X for their support of this show and Relay FM. They did mail. They did mail. Can you believe it? They did stuff to. They touched it. They did things to mail.
Honestly, when they said something like, and now we're talking about our most used communication app, and I actually had the thought in my head, what is there other than messages? Like, I didn't even think of mail. It didn't even occur to me that they might talk about mail in the presentation. But yeah, it was like, oh my God, someone's working on mail? That's amazing.
Undo send, reminders, which is also snoozing, scheduling send, follow-up reminders, and search improvements. Unbelievable. I genuinely, it's like, oh, so you did it then. Like you did the bare like table stakes of a modern email app. They've done it. And this is, I'll tell you what, this fills me with hope for people that use mail, because what this feels like to me is when they did notes and when they did reminders. it's like, we're going to make this app what you expect from an app like this now, and then we're going to keep working on it. Because notes and reminders especially, got more stuff this year. I'm actually looking at reminders, Gray. I'm thinking I might give it another run this year instead of Todoist.
Oh, interesting.
There were some things that bugged me that they've added, like you can now, you get like those 4 boxes at the top with their like smart lists. You can now move your own lists into that section and remove theirs.
Oh, yeah, that is
right?
nice.
Just a simple little thing. But something that we're going to get a big kick out of is you can create templates.
That is
I'm very excited about that. I'm going to give reminders another try, I think, over the beta period. When I put the beta on my iPhone, which will probably be in like a month or something.
But it's funny. I feel like I must have had presentation blindness. I completely missed everything about reminders. I don't even remember them talking about it.
I don't know if they did.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I feel better. I was like, when the heck did they talk about reminders? I don't remember that at all.
I think this was the stuff that came afterwards. I don't remember them talking about it.
Okay. All right. And then now I feel better. Thank you.
But you can't trust my memory at the moment.
Myke, you're Mr. WWDC, right? You've been living and breathing WWDC this entire time.
Uh-huh.
I'm relying on you for 100% accurate information about
Right.
absolutely everything. The other app that I was like, oh my God, they've touched it, which I was so happy about, was the Home app.
Oh my God,
it's just
Gray. Yes. This was one of my top, like, please do this things.
I know. I wrote down the exact quote because I really love this. The presenter came out and she said, "We've reimagined the Home app from the ground up, starting with the underlying architecture," which to me translates as, we trashed the entire thing and started over.
But it's
like,
the perfect time to do that.
Thank you.
Because of this Matter standard. It is the time to, like, from the beginning, let's focus on reliability and then just, like, understand now that people have a lot of smart devices. And if you have smart devices in multiple rooms, the Home app is an absolute chore to try. Like, if you want to turn off the light in the living room and you have to go like swipe. So I unless you've decided to already set it up as it's stupid. And now it's like everything on one page, filters and like little buttons. I love it. I've been playing around with it on my iPad. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic design that they've come up with now.
Having done anything is just thrilling. I'm going to say, I don't know, for the last several years, the Home app is definitely in the contender for worst app that Apple makes.
Yes.
It was just awful. It was so unreliable. Again, when I was with my parents, like they have a bunch of smart lights and like smart things in the house. And I cannot tell you how maddening the debugging is of trying to deal with anything with the Home app. No joke. I spent 2 months trying to get the lights in front of their garage to turn on before sunset and to turn off after sunset. And it's like, even my parents were cracking up at a certain point of like how maddening this was, of like, oh, sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't. When I'm trying to debug them, sometimes I can communicate with one of the lights. Sometimes I can't. I was even out there like checking the Wi-Fi signal. It's like, is one of these out of range? No, there's no problem. It's just this was like a terrible, buggy mess. And everything in the Home app was like that. It's not just the lights. It's the thermostats. It's anything it communicates with. It's just awful. So I was like, oh my God, Apple. Like, you have to get rid of this or redo it, but you can't leave it like this. It's just, it has been the worst user experience for a long time. So I was thrilled about like, we reimagined it from the ground up. Like, yeah, I hope you did, because it is awful. I mean, of course, Myke, we also have to talk about my favorite section, maps. Maps, always the most exciting section of the Apple WWDC
I got excited for you when Meg appeared, right? I was like, oh, Gray's going to love this.
Yes, of course. I was like, what you got for me, Miss Frost? I was also, I don't know if you, I could not figure out for the life of me if in that transition they were filming Craig in front of a green screen or if he was actually outside. This is like, nobody cares about this, but there's a thing that I really hate about a lot of the way modern stuff is filmed on digital cameras is the color profile of digital cameras can sometimes make real things look more like a green screen than they actually are. And I was like, I was really distracted until they turned the camera to Meg Frost, and I was like, okay, she's clearly outside. Like, there's no question about that. But that little transition they did with Craig where he like walks down the hall and he goes outside, I couldn't listen to a word he said. I was like, is he standing in front of a green screen or not? Like, I can't tell. It was driving me mad. I think he was standing in front of a green screen, but who knows? It could have just been the digital camera effects.
His basketball shot was all CGI.
Yeah, it's fun seeing the whole Apple campus, but I do find like I can't turn off the meta part of my brain, which is like, which part of this is real? What's actually happening? What are they not showing us here? Is that actually where that scientist is developing super fast computer chips? I don't know. Is that just a stage? I can't turn off that part of my brain. But yeah, so of course, I'm always excited for Maps. I would say it was a quiet year for Maps. I was happy to see that they're still building out the AR world with like all of the little fancy buildings like we talked about last time, and they're expanding that.
Yep.
And I do have to say that the one big feature is like multi-stop routes, to be able to have multiple locations for a trip. That has been something that I have found just really frustrating, not being able to do that. And it also feels like, oh, thank God, Apple. Like, I'm so glad that this is here. I'm also really glad that you could do a thing where you can build a route on the computer and then send it to the phone. And I've thought for like a couple of real life projects, that is actually a useful feature that I would have. Like, I want to make a route between these 5 locations. It's easier to do on the computer while I'm thinking about stuff and just send that to my phone. So it's like, okay, that's great. It's, like I said, a little bit of a quiet year for Maps, but what I think is not technically Maps, but I also found really fascinating was the Apple Car stuff. Like what they demonstrated that they're going to do with the displays of
the CarPlay
dashboards in cars. Yeah. That was another one of those, you've solved a problem I didn't even know that I had, with being able to customize car dashboards if they're willing to work with Apple in that way. And I just thought like, man, that looks so freaking awesome. And I generally have this rule that if I'm traveling and I need to rent a car, I'm really trying to either rent a Tesla, which is what I'm most familiar in driving. And if that's not an option, which is very frequently the case, it has to have CarPlay integration. It just has to, because I don't want, like, I think it's like a safety problem of, I don't want to have to relearn the car all the time. And so I've had a bunch of experience using Apple CarPlay, and I've always thought it's great. Like, I really like it.
CarPlay is nice. Yeah, I always like it if I'm in like a friend's car or like in a taxi or whatever, and they're using CarPlay. I'm always impressed by it. I think it's a really nice looking interface, and I agree with you. I think what they're doing looks even better. It's like, but it's a long way away, right?
Yeah, no, it looks really impressive, and and again, I know it is a big joke about Apple Maps, but it's like, if you have not used it in a while, it is great. And also, I can say, like, I've tried all of the different systems. I think Apple is really nailing getting the audio directions down. Like, when I was driving around in Hawaii and using Apple for directions, like, they're doing just like great stuff with figuring out when should the voice assistant talk, what should it say, how should it describe what the upcoming intersection is like. It has gotten subtly very, very good. And I think people should give it a try if they haven't. It's like by far my preferred voice assistant in terms of like ease of ability to understand what it is trying to communicate. But especially like thinking about being in a situation where I'm renting cars, the ability to have a dashboard that I can keep with me. So it's like, oh, the speed indicator is just consistent every time. Like, what a fantastic feature. And listeners will know, I love driving Teslas, but I have always told people that I think the biggest downside of the Tesla is that it does not integrate with either, Apple or Android for any of the car stuff. And I really think every year that goes by, this becomes a bigger and bigger problem for Tesla. Like, I'm not saying Tesla's system is bad. I don't love the post Model 3 design language that they've been using in the car. Like, it's fine. I don't really have any problem with it. I just don't love it. whereas I feel like I do really love the Apple interface. But it's like, man, every year that goes by, the fact that Tesla is still relying on like whatever that basic Bluetooth protocol is to just control your music and do a few things, I think that's going to be more and more limiting, especially after this version of CarPlay rolls out and you can like redesign your entire dashboard. Like, I get it. I understand Tesla's reasoning for not wanting to integrate with these things, but I really think they need to fold on this at some point.
I think they're gonna.
You think that they're going to?
2 reasons. One, they very clearly showed a design option, which was the Tesla style, right?
Yeah.
I think that was purposeful. Also, the statistics that they gave, what is it, like 98% of cars have it and 80% of people want it or something like that.
Look, here's the thing. They gave the statistic. I wrote it down. They said 79% would only consider CarPlay for a purchase. And I took a look at that number, and that really felt to me like a replication crisis kind of number. Like, let me see your methodology on that 79%. That number seems crazy high.
Well, it's of iPhone users, right? How many Android users were in that segment of people you asked?
Yeah, but here's the thing. But whatever the real number is, it's only going up. There's no universe in which that number goes down ever. It only increases over time. And like, I can easily imagine like 5 years from now, which car you buy, it depends entirely on like your Apple phone or your Android phone. Like that's like the starting place for the decision.
Yeah, because look, if you're Tesla, right, you had so many advantages. You had the electric car, you had which was fantastic and worked great. You had the charging network, which is available and works great, and you have a really modern operating system. But now, major car companies are solving the first two and then looking to device manufacturers, the smartphone manufacturers, for the third. So you're losing all of your advantages at a certain point, right? As these companies start to encroach on you. So then if you're Tesla, if you don't have that option available, you will start to lose people. Like, if I was buying a car in late 2023, right, and I wanted to buy an electric car, I think I would devalue Tesla in that list because of CarPlay. Like, what they're showing is like, yeah, okay, I would do that. Like, if I was buying a car now, I would have to really think about it because CarPlay is really great, but it would have to be like, but I think Tesla will be closer to the top because it's not so exciting and there's still a ton of benefits for Tesla over other stuff. But as this new feature gets closer and closer, like the reason to buy a Tesla, I think decreases and decreases at the same time that major car companies are encroaching on every other thing that they have that's a benefit to them. So I think that they're going to, personally, I think they're going to have to do it. And if they don't, that's a really stupid decision.
Yeah, I actually you mentioned it there. I got excited when they showed the mock-up because I thought, boy, does that look like the inside of a Tesla. Like, it really does. And of course, when they showed the screen of like, we're working with major manufacturers, no Tesla, that was like, I'm only just looking for one word on that screen. I'm looking for the word Tesla, and it wasn't there. I'm not confident that Tesla will do that, but I do think it's a mistake if they don't. Like,
I think they'll only do it if it's kind of like under duress. You know, it's like it will be whenever they do it, it will be too late, but it will still be done. You know, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, but so anyway, I wanted to mention that, like, I know that the CarPlay stuff is not really part of Maps, but I feel like it functionally is part of Maps because that has to be where 80% of the use is for most people most of the time, and it's like such a practical use of it. And I mean, I just love on the display, like, oh, I could have the car like flying through the little buildings in their little simulation of the world, like right between the wheels, and have the speed on one side and some other indicators on the other.
I love the way that looks.
So good looking, like, and so comfortable to view. So anyway, I was quite interested in that, even though I'm not legally allowed to drive in the UK and only drive in America.
Are you ready to start gaming more seriously on your Mac? I felt like this was for you too. When I'm talking about Mac gaming, I'm like, oh yeah, look, Gray won't get a PC, so it's great that they're bringing more gaming to the Mac.
I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. When the Mac gaming part started, I turned to my wife and I said, this is a perfect time for the bathroom break for both of us. So we both got up and went to the bathroom and came back. I don't know. I find the gaming section very boring because they don't have anything other to say than like, look at all of these teraflops. Look at all of these polygons. We've polygoned it up. And the game that they have to play is getting people to develop games for both Windows and Mac at the same time. Like that's the actual hill that they have to climb. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a game developer. I don't know, but I just, in all of those gaming sections, I rarely feel like they're hitting on things that are moving the needle on that problem. Like what makes it easier or more profitable for developers who would normally just work on Windows to also make something for the Mac. I feel this pain when I browse through Steam and look at games. And it's like, oh man, like this Mac section is a little sad. It's better than it used to be, but the number of times I see some cool game and I go, oh, right, that's not going to happen. So, I mean, did you feel like there was anything in that section that would address that other than just like our graphics are awesome?
I feel like that there is a positioning part of this which is important. That part of the presentation to me felt like it was ripped out of the presentation they give behind closed doors to game developers. So like, there are a couple of parts to this. Like one is like talking about the strength of the Mac platform, that Macs are more powerful than ever and we're selling more of them than we ever have. Like that's a big plus there, right? Like our market share is larger. So if you make a Mac game, there's more people to put it to. But the other thing, the bigger thing is like, look, hey, this is all our one platform. Have you ever heard about the iPhone and the iPad? Because this is where I look at it as like, because if you do the work and you bring your game to the Mac, you can also bring your game to our other devices. Because it's the same APIs. Because one of the games, so they showed off No Man's Sky, right? Which is a funny game in Cortex lore. Like for people that remember, like I was so excited about that game before it came out. And then obviously all the things happened and now it's a much better game.
People should watch the Internet Historian video on No Man's Sky. It's amazing. Put it in the show notes, Myke.
I'll find it. That game, by the way, now is incredible. Like they've not stopped working on it and it's kind of unbelievable what they've done with it. But anyway, we'll all get to experience it, not just on our Macs, but there was a press release afterwards also on the iPad. They didn't talk about that during the presentation, but No Man's Sky will be on the iPad too. And so it's like, oh, okay. And then the fact that they were able to get Capcom to come out and talk about Resident Evil Village, which is a game that came out in the last year. It was just a serious game. Like, there's just things like that where I'm like, this feels different. And then the other part of it is, well, if you want to make a VR headset, you've got to get good at games. And so I feel like they are attacking it from both sides, right? They have the iPhone and the iPad part. They don't need to do any work. You know you want to bring a game there. If you can run a game on those platforms, you'll run a game on those platforms because there's so many devices, right? And it just makes sense. But the Mac is like, yeah, I don't know. But if you have something powerful enough, it now has the power. Like they were saying, like Resident Evil Village plays in 4K on the Mac Studio. Right? And so it's like, that sounds fantastic, right? Or they would do 1080 on everything else and 4K on the studio with like the Pro and the Ultra, which is, that all makes sense. That's what you'd expect. You're playing a game on a laptop, you probably expect 1080 by and large because you don't want to destroy the battery. So it's like stuff like that where it's like, this all sounds different. And they are now in a position where they can pitch this stuff more seriously, but then going at it from both sides. We've got all the devices and we also have the technology. Please bring your game to us. I will also say Resident Evil Village just announced VR content for PlayStation VR.
So what, do you think they might be working with Apple on like testing out headset stuff? Is that what you're thinking?
I could imagine that they would be also bringing the Resident Evil Village VR content to Apple as well.
Yeah, maybe. Again, because I find that section boring. I wasn't paying full attention. But I do feel like, okay, if they're actually trying to pitch it, like we're bringing these platforms closer together so that you get access to all three of them, that does solve the developer problem of how are we going to make this profitable to do.
Also, Metal 3 introduced a bunch of stuff to enable way more powerful games to come to the platform. Like, they're not sleeping on it. And it isn't just like, hey, this is so convenient. is like convenient and we're doing the work. Like that's where I see it's like it's coming from these two sides from them right now.
Well, yeah, and honestly, like the one thing, they congratulated themselves in the presentation, and I thought, you guys totally deserve it. When they congratulated themselves on the transfer to the M1 and M2 Mac Silicon chip line, it's like, guys, your chip team is just abso-freaking-lutely knocking it out of the park. It is shocking. Like I'm still just constantly impressed at how well my laptop does with really heavy workloads. It's so good how well the battery lasts. Like I always kind of underrate when they're like, "Oh, this laptop will last forever." No, it won't. It's like, "Oh, wow, my new Pro actually does last a very long time on the battery." Like this is the first time I feel like it's delivered on those promises. But more importantly is like the raw power when it's actually plugged in. And that does feel like if they keep working at this, I can see in the long run that it could attract actually more of like the serious gaming end if they're able to keep making the kind of gains that they have of like, oh, actually Mac computers on Apple Silicon are amazing for heavy duty stuff. I can see that in the future. I just don't, I'm not well versed enough in like what all the current level stats are to know how these things are relative to each other now. But I could see that in the future of Apple might actually be able to turn the tides on this and have the best processors that exist. Look, I mean, the only thing that really caught my attention during the gaming section was they mentioned background download API. Bringing it back to you mentioning at the start about all the APIs. And that one did catch my attention for one reason, which is every time Magic releases a new set of cards, the app loads, so it's updated in the App Store, it's downloaded onto your computer, but when the app loads, it then says, it's so annoying, it goes, "Would you like to download 5 gigabytes in order to continue?" It's like, what? Yes, of course I would.
Greg, why is it so large?
It's all the artwork for the cards. Wow. It's just a huge, huge update. The artwork, especially on the computer, it's genuinely gorgeous. On the iPad, it's a little bit compressed and terrible looking, but it's still like it's just a ton of data. But I always find that incredibly annoying. Like, hey, can't I just open this app and start looking around and you download the cards as I need them? Yeah. Wouldn't that be better? And that's all I was thinking of for like that background download API. Like, oh, come on, Wizards of the Coast. Please include this in your app so that I don't have to download the entire thing and wait for 20 minutes before I can actually do the thing that I want to do, which is play your game.
Who's slower at adding new features, Apple or Wizards of the Coast?
I think that depends on how you define a feature.
How like confident are you that they're going to add this thing with iOS 16?
3% confident. That's my
For some reason, that was what I expected, and I don't know why, because I don't really know anything about this company. But there's just something, the name Wizards of the Coast makes it feel like this company is very old. It's just like, it just sounds old,
Wizards of the Coast is actually owned by Hasbro, and mainly my 3% is just how vital is this from their perspective when they're developing for multiple platforms. I think it's not very vital. And ultimately, am I willing to wait 20 minutes to play the game? Well, yeah, of course, because I'm going to then spend hundreds of hours on it. So yeah, like the 20 minutes is nothing. But still, it would be nice if they implemented that background download API.